This is the Exploring Pyramids of Biomass Interactive, and the first thing that you're going to do is read through the introduction, which I am going to skip just for the sake of time. Now, once you get through that, this is going to open up. This is something that you're going to read and work through. I'm just going to show you some of the highlights. So one thing you can do is you can always close this if you need to actually access what's in these pools. So that's a helpful tool, is being able to click this little button here to close that. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to select a pool that you're going to look at, and you're going to commit to that pool. You're then going to tell me what you think the pyramid of biomass is going to look like in that pool, and you're going to explain your hypothesis. Anything that you type into these justifications and anything that you type in general or that you select is going to be saved to a report that you're going to be able to submit to Canvas. So make sure that you're putting in actual words here, that you're not just typing goggly goop. We are going to be able to read those, so make sure they're your actual thoughts. Okay, so the next thing we have to do is we're going to have to scrape the algae off of this. So I can't currently move on because I haven't done any algae collection. So I have to close that, click on my algae scraper here, and I'm going to scrape. And as I scrape, you can see that it's collecting algae and it's giving me some data right there. I want to make sure I've got at least 75% of this scraped. So I'm going to keep scraping until I've got a good amount. If I've collected enough, then I can move on and this button will become available. If not, go back and scrape some more. All right, we now have to do some math. So what this is asking you is, it's saying that you have scraped 30% of the pool, 30% of the surface of the pool, and we want to know what the total amount of algae would be. So here's a hint. You can click on that and that'll give you a hint of how to do this math. And then a calculator, but I'm going to walk you through it for mine. So first of all, I know that I'm going to need to find the pool surface area. So this number right here is my pool surface area. So I'm going to put 47 into my calculator. I then am going to multiply that by 0.3 because that is the equivalency of 30%. So times 0.3. And then lastly, I need to multiply that by the biomass collected of the area scraped. So that's this number right here. So I'm going to multiply again. I'm going to multiply by 0.876. And that's going to give me my total value. So I'm going to input this, and then that will allow me to move on. You then have to do, using a 10% rule, you have to do some more math here. So this is saying that using the 10% rule, we're going to calculate the amount of catfish biomass that we think is supported by the amount of algae. So if there is this much algae, 10% of that would allow me to have that much biomass of the catfish. So if I multiply this number, my 12.352 times 0.1, because that's 10%, so that's going to be the number that I put in here. And you're going to have different numbers because you'll have scraped a different amount, you'll have done some different math, you'll have picked a different pool. So I'm going to continue, and then I'm going to predict how many adult catfish I should be able to have in this pool. So if each catfish weighs 10 grams, but my pool can only have 1 gram, I'm going to guess that I can't even have 0 catfish in this pool. There's just not enough algae based on these rules. So now we have to actually count the catfish. So this is the next part. I'm going to click on this little counter here, and I'm going to hold it over the catfish. And as I hold it over, it gives me this little notification that, oh, there's actually something there. So it kind of pings the next one that I should click. I'm going to move it around. When I've collected all of them, I'll be able to move on. So I actually haven't collected all of them yet. There must be one hiding somewhere. Oh, there it is. Okay. Now, based on this, I found that there were 14 catfish in the pool. And if each catfish weighs 10 grams, 14 times 10 is 140. So going through, this appears to me like I have a whole bunch more catfish mass than I have algae mass. So I'm going to pick the pyramid that shows that. And I'm going to write an explanation. Remember, that explanation is saving. So now we're going to run through this simulator. And I highly recommend that you read these things or it's not going to make any sense. So you're going to read through this. You're going to pick another pyramid. You're going to write another explanation based on what you read. And now we're going to compare a couple of pools. So we're looking at this Bat Rocks pool and this, I don't know how to say this, Cess pool. And we're going to have to go through, we're going to pick what we think is going to happen to the algae over time. And then we're going to actually collect the data. So when you collect this data, you will have to go through that collection process again. So I'm going to use the scraper and I'm going to scrape. I'm going to then measure the catfish. And as I go through this, I am going to get my data. So, to actually be on there, scrape, scrape, scrape. When I think I've scraped enough, I can scrape over here and it will automatically collect data again. And then once I've done that, I have some math to do. So this time we don't have to worry about the 30% because we're comparing these to each other. So this time I'm going to have grams divided by meters squared. So using my calculator, I'm going to take my grams. So in this pool, it's 0.149 divided by my meters squared, 0.712. And you're going to do that for both of these. I'm just going to put in a random number here. It says that I haven't collected enough algae. So let's do some more algae collection. Make sure that I've got enough algae to actually make a good measurement. Okay. Depending on whether or not your results are consistent with your prediction, you're going to click and explain. And then we're going to count our number of catfish. So you've been through this catfish counting before. So you're just going to count, count, count all of those catfish. Now, when you get all the way to the end of this, I'm going to assume that you can read through this on your own. You're going to get to the end, and when you get to the end, you're going to click Generate Report. That's going to ask you to put in your name, and then it will open up a report that you can then save. And it has here, it has all of your data collection, it has all of your explanations. You're going to save this, and you're going to submit this to Canvas. So you have to get all the way to the end of this tool. So this blue circle here at the end will be white, and then you're going to generate that report and turn that in.